Hi, welcome to another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'm Cheryl and I'm in charge of the craft kits at the main library. And today's video is to accompany a craft kit that we'll be giving out at the main library starting April 15th, 2023. But if you're watching this later, or if you can't get to the main library to get a kit, don't worry. You can make this craft with items you buy at your local hardware store or plant nursery. What we're going to be making today are these seed balls. Now, what these are seeds that are in a mixture of clay and potting soil, and it's air dry clay, and I'll show you what we used later in just a minute. Now, the air dry clay, when you plant these, the air dry clay will absorb the water and hold it next to the seeds to allow for germination or sprouting. The potting soil keeps the clay from being too dense and solid and lightens it up and lets the roots get through and the sprouts come out. So you need both of them to make effective seed balls. Now what you do with these is you plant them. And it's a good way of starting out your seeds. It's also a good way of randomly planting if you're not sure and you're one of those people who plants in rows and you don't like the way it looks. You can get these and you can just randomly fling them into the flower bed where you want them to be. And since it's random, it looks more natural. So these are also good for giving as gifts for things like wedding party or wedding gifts for the guests, or baby showers. They make little take-home favors. You can package them up in pretty little bags with a little note with the planting instructions that says something about, here are some beautiful flowers to grow as our love grows, or if it's a baby shower, as our family grows. So these flowers will grow and remind you of our happiness. So let's get started, and I'll tell you what's in the kit, or what you need to buy if you don't have the kit. The first thing is some clay, and we're using air dry clay that you can buy at the craft store. Don't get the Sculpey or the baked clay or the oil-based clay, or it has to say air dry. Okay. Now, you're also going to need some regular potting soil. Now, the amount of potting soil you're going to need is about 2 times the amount of clay that you have. So about 1 part clay to 2 parts potting soil. Now our kits are already pre-measured, so this should be about the right amounts. You'll also need some seeds. The ones that we put in the kit happen to be a mixture of wildflower seeds. Some are annual, some are perennial, but you are welcome to buy any kind of seeds you want if you're making your own. You'll also get a couple of nitrile gloves. Now, just to make sure, these are not latex, so they won't set off your allergies. These are nitrile, non-allergy. Okay. And you'll also get a set of instructions. Alrighty, what you will need to provide is you will need to provide a bowl to pour the seeds into for easy access, because as you're making the seed balls, what you'll do is mix up the clay. You'll tap this down in here to pick up a few seeds, and then you'll kind of squish them inside the clay. You will also need to provide a work surface. I like to use these little plastic trays. You can see this is actually what I used to make those seed balls. You can also use just wax paper, or a sheet of aluminum foil, something that's just going to protect your surface, because this is going to get all muddy and messy. You will also need just a little bit of water to adjust the texture on your clay, because as you go along and as you add the dirt, it's going to be it's going to start to dry out, and you'll want to add a little bit of water to make the texture right, to keep it from drying out while you're working with it. Now, when these are done, these are going to be solid, because we're going to let them dry for a few days, and they're going to be solid as a rock. And after that, you don't have to worry about them. You can bag them up in little baggies, or just plant them in your garden, and I'll talk to you about how to plant them at the end of the video. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to dump the seeds out into a bowl. All right, so we'll get on to the actual crafting. Oh, I don't know what that is all about. All right, so now I'm going to put on my gloves. So we are going to start mixing the dirt into our clay. So I just like to put it on either side and just mix it in. Now, as you mix this in, the potting soil is going to absorb some of the liquid, and it's going to make the clay a little dry and crumbly. That's the point where you need to add, see how it's falling apart on me? That's the part when you need to add a little bit of water, just a tiny bit at a time. The texture you're aiming for is soft and sticky, but not runny or gloopy. You know, you don't want it becoming liquidy. I think I'm going to need a little bit more here. All right, I think that's about enough mixed in. Okay. Now, it looks like it's holding together okay, and I am feeling it being very sticky. So that's about the right consistency. As I'm working with it, putting the seeds in, if it seems to dry out just a little bit, you can always add just a touch more water, mix it in, and keep working with it. So what I do to make the seed balls is you pull off probably small balls. You don't want big balls. You want balls about the size of a dime. See if you can see that. And then you're going to take your seeds, and we're not going to use very many seeds for each one. We're only going to use, I don't know if you can see those down there. I just dropped a few down there. We're only going to use 3 or 4 seeds at a time for each ball. And the reason is because if you put too many seeds in there, they're all going to sprout, and you'll have 15 different plants trying to grow in the same space. We put 3 or 4 seed balls in them and just make sure they're just barely covered with the clay. You don't want to bury them all the way inside the center. You want to give them a little bit of room to You want them near the surface, but not sitting right on the surface. So I just put a little bit, and then I just kind of folded a little bit of clay over top of it. We use 3 or 4 in each ball because when you get a bunch of seeds, not every single one of them may germinate or sprout. So we need a few just to make sure that at least one, but not too many so that they're going to be overcrowded if more than one sprout. So I'm just going to set that aside, and I'm going to continue on just like this. What I tend to do sometimes is when I get a little seed ball, instead of picking up the thing, I just kind of tap it down in there and see how many it's picked up. And that looks like about 4 or 5. So I'm just going to make the clay just go right over top of them a little bit. And that's it. I'm going to do that until every bit of this stuff is full. That's a little too many seeds. Until every bit of the clay is used up. Now if this takes me too long and this starts to get dry, remember I can just put a few drops of water in there, mix it all together again, and make it softer. Okay, so this is the result. I've finished up rolling all of my clay balls. Now this one made about 20 seed balls, so it'll be about that amount with the amount in your kit. Now as I said at the beginning, you can package these up, but what you do before you do anything with them is you're going to let them dry for a few days so that they're solid. They will lighten up. They'll get lighter gray, and they'll be very solid. And then after they're completely dry, then you can use them. In Kansas, where we are, right now it's not time to plant yet. Our frost date is around the beginning of May, so we can make these ahead of time and then just plant them at the beginning of May. What you'll do is you will take one of these and you will plant it about halfway down in the dirt so that the dirt will only come up halfway. That's a good way, so that you don't want to completely cover them because then they'll be buried too deeply for the seeds. Just plant them about halfway up, and then when they get wet, and then water them really well, and when they start to get wet, they'll start breaking apart, and keep them watered until you start seeing the sprouts growing. Now you can just scatter these in a flower bed and just plant them where they land. So that makes it a little bit more random and a little bit more natural looking. And since these are wildflowers, they are going to be different heights and different colors, and some of them will be annuals, which means they only last 1 year and they'll bloom the first year, and some of them will be perennial, which means they might not bloom this year, but they'll come back next year and bloom next year. And as I said in the beginning, you could use these as cute little gifts, favors for weddings and baby showers, in a cute little bag with a tag on it. You can even start these in smaller pots inside. If you want to get a jump start on your garden, you can plant these in smaller pots and keep them watered, and when they're grown to a decent size, and if it's past frost, you can then plant them outside, and you're all done. And so thanks for watching another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'll see you next time. Bye.